Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise and give you the concentrated insights you need. Today, we're plugging into solar power. And this isn't just about panels anymore. We're talking about the tech and the money side of things that are basically rewriting the energy world way faster than, well, anyone really expected. So our goal today, give you the shortcut, the well-informed take on solar's key technologies, its roller coaster economic path, the real headaches of plugging it into the grid, and how it actually works in packed cities like Delhi. We've got sources covering everything from the big global picture to specific city reports.
And it's definitely the right time for this. I mean, look at 2024. The numbers are just staggering. Solar hit 7% of global electricity this year and capacity. It's doubling roughly every 3 years.
Doubling every 3 years.
Yeah, think about that. It means right now 3/4 of all new power generation capacity being built worldwide.
Yeah.
It's solar.
Wow.
It's gone from niche to, well, the dominant player in energy growth. So, yeah. Where should we start?
Okay, let's start with the basics, the tech. Because people say solar power, but they might mean different things, right?
Exactly. Two main types we need to separate out. First, the one everyone pictures, photovoltaics.PV. These are your classic solar panels. They use that photovoltaic effect to turn sunlight straight into electricity. Rooftops, big solar farms, that's mostly PV.
Got it. And the second type?
That's concentrated solar power, or CSP. Totally different beast. It uses mirrors, sometimes lenses, huge arrays of them, often tracking the sun. They focus all that sunlight onto one spot to get it incredibly hot.
Okay.
And that heat usually makes steam to drive a turbine, just like a traditional power plant. So it's heat-based, not direct electricity.
Right, thermal versus electrical. But hang on, if the science goes back to the 1880s, like our sources mention, why the massive delay? Why is it only exploding now?
Yeah, that's the fascinating bit. The PV effect itself, known since the 1880s. A German industrialist, von Siemens, even saw its potential way back then. But the first real silicon solar cell in 1954, well, it's kind of a disaster, efficiency-wise. Only 4.5 to 6% efficient.
Ouch.
And the cost, get this, US $286 per watt.
Per watt. Seriously.
Seriously. So, understandably, it just kind of languished. It was a lab curiosity, really, until the 1970s energy crises, the oil shocks, that finally made governments and investors sit up and think, maybe we should look at this solar thing again.
Okay, that makes sense. Necessity is the mother of invention, or at least investment. But what's driving the acceleration today, I saw perovskites mentioned quite a bit, calls them the fastest advancing tech.
Yes, perovskites. This is where things get really exciting on the innovation front. Now, don't get me wrong, standard crystalline silicon, still king, over 90% of the market in 2022.
Yeah.
But perovskites, the speed of improvement is just wild. They went from like 3.8% efficiency in 2009 to over 25% for a single cell just a decade later. And now, if you layer them onto silicon, what they call a tandem cell, they've hit 34.85% efficiency in the lab.
Whoa, 34.85%. That's huge. Isn't that better than silicon can theoretically do on its own?
It is. It blows past the theoretical limit for single-junction silicon. It's a massive leap.
So what's the downside? There's always a catch, right?
Hey, yeah. The catch is stability, durability. They work brilliantly in controlled lab settings, but making them last out in the real world, dealing with moisture, heat, day after day, year after year, that's the hurdle. They're still working on cracking that nut for mass production and long-term reliability.
Okay, so PV's got this potentially game-changing tech bubbling up. What about the other one, CSP, concentrated solar power? How's it doing?
Well, that's the other side of the coin. CSP, relying on heat, it's struggling to keep up cost-wise. Its levelized cost of electricity, the LCOE, is currently more than double that of PV.
Double. Oof.
Yeah, so as of 2022, it was less than 1% of all solar installed globally. PV pretty decisively won the first round on cost.
Right, which brings us neatly to the economics. These tech breakthroughs are great, but they don't take off unless the price is right. How fast did PV prices actually fall?
I mean, the cost curve is the story here. It explains everything.
We mentioned that crazy $286 per watt figure from 1954. Even in 1982, you said it was, what, $27,000 per kilowatt?
Yep, around $27,000 a kilowatt. Then jumped to 2006, it's down to about $4,000 a kilowatt.
Still sounds pretty pricey.
It was. But look now, as of 2025, utility-scale solar is down around 25 US cents per watt.
25 cents from $286. That's unbelievable.
It's absolutely plummeted, driven by massive manufacturing scale-up, especially out of Asia, and continuous small tech improvements. And the result is undeniable. For new power plants in most places on Earth, utility-scale solar is now the cheapest option, right alongside onshore wind. period.
That's just a fundamental shift in the energy landscape. And the cost structure itself is interesting too, right? Because the fuel is free.
Exactly. Once it's built, the sun doesn't send you a bill. So almost all the cost, like 80 to 90%, is upfront capital, building the thing. But then those panels typically last 25, even up to 40 years. So it's a long-term investment that pays off for decades.
Okay, so it's cheap, it lasts long. Where does it work best geographically?
Well, the highest potential, the most intense sunlight, is in what the sources call the global sun belt. Think arid tropics, subtropics, lots of direct sun there.
Makes sense. Deserts and sunny regions.
But crucially, you don't need to be in a desert. Tracking systems, the ones that tilt the panels to follow the sun, make a huge difference. They can seriously boost the energy you get, even much farther from the equator. That opens up way more land globally.
And speaking of global, you can't really talk solar scale without mentioning China, can you?
No, you really can't. The scale there is just mind-boggling. They have about half of all the solar power installed in the entire world.
Half. Wow.
And get this. In 2023 alone, last year, China installed 60% of the world's new solar capacity, just in 1 year.
That's hard to even wrap your head around. The speed is incredible.
It's an industrial rollout unlike anything we've ever really seen before.
Okay, so the deployment is massive, the economics work. But let's talk about the big practical challenge. The sun goes down every night. How do grids cope with that variability?
Right, that's the elephant in the room. It's variable, it's intermittent. Day-night cycles, clouds, weather, it all affects output. So you absolutely need solutions for grid integration. Storage is key.
How does storage work differently for the two main types, PV and CSP?
Well, for concentrated solar power, CSP, remember, it works with heat. That actually gives it a built-in storage advantage. They often use molten salts, basically, giant tanks of super hot liquid salt to store that thermal energy.
Hot salt.
Yeah. The Solana plant in the U.S., for example, uses it to store enough heat to generate power for 6 hours after the sun sets. That easily covers the evening peak demand when everyone gets home and turns things on.
6 hours is pretty significant. What about PV, the regular panels? No hot salt there.
No hot salt. For PV, storage is electrical. Batteries. Mostly lithium-ion, like in your phone or an EV, but bigger scale, obviously. You also see older tech, like lead-acid, or even repurposed batteries from electric vehicles finding a second life.
Are batteries still super expensive, though? That's always been the issue.
They are still a significant cost, yes. But battery prices are falling rapidly, too, following a similar, though not quite as dramatic, curve as solar panels. They're becoming much more viable for smoothing out those daily peaks and troughs.
So you've got thermal storage for CSP, batteries for PV. What else?
Hybrid systems are really effective, pairing solar with something flexible, like conventional hydro dams. You can adjust the water flow through the dam to generate more power when the sun isn't shining and less when solar is peaking. They complement each other really well.
Ah, using water as a sort of natural battery.
Exactly. And pump storage hydro is even more direct. You use cheap solar power during the day to pump water uphill into a reservoir. Then at night, you let the water flow back down through turbines to generate electricity. It's like a giant water-based battery. Very efficient, actually.
That makes sense. And I saw something about wind and solar being good partners.
Yeah, they're often a great match. Because generally speaking, you tend to get more wind at night and during winter, while solar peaks during the day and in summer.
Oh, interesting. So they balance each other out.
They often do, yeah. Combining wind and solar gives you a much smoother, more consistent power output across the day and across seasons. It really helps with grid stability.
Okay, that covers the big grid scale.
Yeah.
What about for homeowners, people with panels on their roof? How do they interact with the grid?
Right, the consumer side. A key concept there is net metering. In many places, if your panels produce more electricity than you're using, that excess power flows back into the grid. And with net metering, your utility effectively credits you for that power, often at the same rate you pay them when you draw power from the grid.
So the grid acts like a storage system for you, and you only pay for the net amount you used.
Pretty much, yeah. You're billed on the difference. It's a strong incentive for rooftop solar.
But that's not always the case, is it? Sometimes they pay you less for the power you sell back.
Exactly. In some places, the feed-in tariff, the price you get for selling power back, is lower than the retail price you pay for buying power.
Ah, okay, so then what?
Well, then you have a strong incentive for what's called self-consumption. You want to use as much of your own solar power yourself when it's being generated.
How do you do that?
Simple things, really, like running your dishwasher or washing machine in the middle of the day when the sun's out instead of at night. Or using smart devices. Maybe an electric hot water heater that primarily heats water during peak solar hours, storing that energy as hot water for later. It's about shifting your demand.
Right, using your own cheap power instead of selling it low and buying back high later makes economic sense.
Definitely.
Okay, so the economics are pushing consumers towards smarter usage. But we should talk about the environmental side more broadly. Obviously, no emissions when operating, but what about the whole life cycle? Making the panels, disposal?
Good point. Yeah, operation is clean, no smokestacks. But you have to look cradle to grave. The sources say life cycle greenhouse gas emissions for solar farms are generally under 50 grams per kilowatt hour.
How does that compare?
Well, compare that to a modern natural gas plant. Even without carbon capture, that's around 500 grams per kilowatt hour. So solar is roughly 10 times cleaner, or even better, over its lifetime.
That's a pretty stark difference.
It is. But there are material concerns, absolutely. Manufacturing uses copper, tellurium, other minerals. Sourcing needs to be sustainable. And those exciting perovskite cells. The current formulations often use lead, which is toxic. That's a big issue they need to solve before widespread commercial use, finding lead-free alternatives.
Okay, lead is definitely a concern. What about land use? Solar farms can look huge.
They can. The average life cycle surface power density is around 7 watts per square meter, according to the sources. Now, that sounds low, but you can minimize the new land required by putting panels on rooftops, over parking lots, on already developed land. That helps a lot.
But for the really big utility-scale farms.
Yeah, for those, land use is a definite consideration. It requires careful planning and siting.
Okay, let's bring this down to a specific place. Let's zoom into Delhi, India. Our sources use it as a case study for urban solar. What are the challenges there?
Delhi's a perfect example of where solar isn't just about climate change. It's about immediate pressing needs. You've got a massive city dealing with, well, multiple crises at once. Rising electricity bills, frequent power cuts that disrupt everything, and really severe air pollution, a lot of it from burning coal for power. Smog is a huge problem.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of the smog there. It looks intense.
It is. But the upside. Delhi gets a ton of sun, over 250 sunny days a year. Ideal for solar.
So what are the immediate benefits they're seeing from deploying solar?
It helps on all fronts. Households save money on bills. Critically, schools, hospitals, essential services, they can keep running during those power cuts using solar and battery backup.
That must be huge for them.
Absolutely life-changing in some cases. And of course, every kilowatt hour from solar means less reliance on those polluting coal plants outside the city, which helps chip away at the air quality problem.
But Delhi is incredibly crowded, right? Not a lot of open land for massive solar farms.
Exactly. Space is at a premium. Rooftops are limited and often cluttered. So they can't just use any old panel. They need the highest efficiency possible to maximize generation in small spaces.
This is where those specific technologies come in.
Precisely. You see them deploying things like mono-PERC cells, which are highly efficient silicon cells. Also, bifacial modules. These are clever. They capture sunlight on the front and reflected light off the roof surface onto the back of the panel.
Oh, wow. So squeezing out extra power from the same footprint.
Exactly. And things like half-cut cells, which also boost efficiency and performance, especially if part of the panel gets shaded. It's all about maximizing watts per square meter in a tough urban environment.
It really shows how adaptable the tech is becoming, fitting into dense cities, not just deserts.
It does. And it underscores that solar is now often the cheapest and most practical solution, even in complex, high-demand areas.
And if you connect that back to the bigger picture you mentioned earlier.
Right. Energy security. Once that panel is on a roof in Delhi or anywhere, the fuel source, the sun, can't be cut off by geopolitical conflicts or supply chain issues like oil or gas can.
That's a really powerful point. Local generation equals resilience.
It adds a crucial layer of energy independence.
Okay, so let's pull this all together. We've seen the different tech types, PV winning on cost, thanks to that incredible price drop. We've seen how storage, thermal, battery, hydro, and smart consumer behavior help integrate this variable source. And we looked at Delhi, showing how vital solar is becoming for cities facing energy and pollution crises. The bottom line seems clear. Solar is basically the cheapest new energy globally. Its growth is explosive, driven by ongoing innovation like perovskites, and it's essential for hitting climate goals and solving immediate local problems.
Absolutely. Beth, it does leave us with a significant future question, doesn't it? We talk about land use.
Yeah.
While utility-scale solar is vital and cheap, getting to climate targets by, say, 2050 might mean covering a noticeable chunk of land with panels maybe 0.5% up to over 5% in dense regions like the EU, India, Japan, South Korea.
That sounds like it could create conflicts.
It could. We know people are already trying creative solutions like agrivoltaics, putting panels vertically, or raised up high on farmland so you can still grow crops underneath, or floating solar on reservoirs.
Right. Trying to use land twice.
Exactly. So the big question going forward seems to be, how do we balance this urgent need for massive, rapid solar deployment with local concerns about land use, aesthetics, and finding space for it all, especially as solar's growth just keeps accelerating? What stands out to you from all this?
That tension between speed, scale, and local acceptance, that's definitely something to watch. It feels like the next big chapter in the solar story. Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Until next time.